And I think we're live.
And we are live. Season 3, Episode 7.
The Crash Test Dummies. Yeah! I'm black, you're yellow. We're good. We're black.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. Yes. So it is Palmer and Rusty again for another one. And this would be our post-holiday show. So
yeah, we were planning to do the one before the holiday, but well, the Tooth Fairy attacked.
It didn't quite work out.
Yeah. For you, that is.
That's right.
It's like, I can't talk because my face is full of stuff. So.
And that's right. And then looks like Stryker is in the lobby. Thanks for joining us, Stryker.
Hey, Mel.
Good to see you. There we go. All right. And he's on the screen.
All right.
I like that feature. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, let's like kick over here and look at the live comments coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have things, I kind of know how things have been going for you, but how have things been going for you, Rusty?
Other than being a crash test dummy with the wildlife, not bad. After going a whole bunch of days without a vehicle because my truck has been decimated. It got wiped out by a 10-point buck. Now it's like I like hunting, but that's not the way I like to hunt my venison. So yeah. So I've had a little bit of free time to work on stuff. It's probably why, if you watched my video that came out yesterday, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Dan's in here. All right. Howdy, Dan. And yeah, it's like I've been working hard overtime to get some projects done. So
yeah. So what have you been working on? Like I know I didn't get a chance to see your video that you just put up, but what overall over the holidays, what would you say you've been working on?
Let's see. What did I work on? I didn't get a lot done because of all the trips, because I had spent a lot of the holiday time out of town, probably like you.
Mm-hmm.
You're down at what, North Carolina or something?
Yep, Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, and I was elsewhere, so here, there, everywhere, and having time with the family.
Snowmobiling.
Yeah, all that fun shit.
What did you? Okay, now we have to rate this channel differently. Thanks, Rusty. No, it's
not for children, okay?
Rusty's like, stop talking about my personal life, Palmer.
I do.
So, what do you have for your musty drink tonight?
Well, I have my Confluence Brewing Extinction Event. It's the latest
Tried
one.
And True. Oh, it's a different one?
Yeah, it's like they had another one come out. It's like whatever this one is.
Mm-hmm.
And let me pour it into my musty, festive glass. Let's see. Pour it in here. You're going to love this glass. Almost, well, it sort of all fits in there.
Oh, wow. That is cool.
Yeah, I sent you a picture.
Yes. Oh, wait, you had your hand over the bottom. That's the lamp.
That's
the leg lamp.
From...
Yeah, when you had your hand over it, I couldn't see the shade for. I thought it was a goblet at first when you had it, but that's the lamp you showed me. Yeah,
it's
nice.
The movie.
I like it.
So it's like I seen that. I had to get it.
That's so cool. I really like that.
That movie just makes me laugh.
Yeah, that's a classic. It
is a classic.
Fragile.
My wife refuses to watch it with me. She's like, that movie is so stupid.
My wife's kind of the same. It's not her favorite, but my kids they consider it a classic now. Where my youngest daughters want to watch it every year. Like we like to watch it and then I don't know if you know this one, but from when I was a little kid and when my kids were really little, there was the Muppets one, the Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one, but it's just like a little puppet one. It's like Jim Henson, basically. And we didn't watch it this year, but they really liked that when they were little. But this kind of, they've grown into this one now, the Christmas Story. And they love it. Yeah. So
we have that one. I always liked Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer because I grew up with that one.
Oh yeah.
It's a humble bumble. So, I just want to be a dentist.
That's right. The Abominable Snowman.
Yes.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, I'll show a little bit of what I've got.
And then I got
oh, there you go. You got your stuff. Nice.
So that is. Let me put it down here for a second.
The flag looks nice on there.
Yeah, that is my Jaegers. Typically Jaegers. Let's see if we can go full screen on this.
Oh, sure. Hang on a second. Should have did that. There you go.
Okay. See if we can get that. You can see here.
Mm-hmm.
That's the full unit. Come on.
Yeah, no. When you go up close, it was focusing when it was right up close, but that's good.
Yeah, just like that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I have those guys.
Yeah.
So that's my Hessian Jaegers. I got 20 of them, 21. I probably could make, well, if I decide to, after I do this next, I got 2 more boxes of Jaegers I can work on. And then I have this.
Yeah.
That's my Hessian artillery.
Yeah. That came out really nice.
And I made the stand, the gabions. Those I made, use some of my artistic skill and stuff. I made those plant. Now I'm spend a whole day, make a whole defensive works. It's like if we do something like the Breeds Hill, all those other different places and stuff that go with it. And I have my general.
Right. Nice.
That's my Hessian general. And then I just finished this guy today.
That's your BattleTech, but what do we say that it's your Hessian BattleTech?
Yes, it's my Hessian BattleTech. It's my Jaeger.
Jaegers.
My Jaeger for my Jaegers.
Sweet.
And then I also started working on my command stand for the Army group deal. In my video, if you watch it, I'll be showing, I have a 60 mil base that it's like, come on, focus. You won't focus. And I got the 60 mil base that I put 2 guys at the attention with the rifles in front of them. Then I made a little table, and I have the what do you call it? The general holding his hat up, going type of deal. So.
Nice. Looks like we have another gentleman, or maybe I'm assuming gentleman, maybe not. Plastic Crake is gaming, has joined us.
Yeah,
very nice.
Scarnier rebranded himself.
Oh, that's Scarnier. Tisai Scarnier. Hey there.
Yep.
Cool. So I'm assuming it's pronounced Plastic Crack and Speak. It's not Crake. But
Plastic
cool.
Crag.
Nice. Awesome.
There we go.
Good. So I as you said, like I was away and I haven't really done a whole lot hobby-wise since being back. I also just came off, kind of paid for being off for a while and traveling by doing a stretch at work. So I'm just kind of getting off of a little bit of a stretch. But what I did do recently is I just kind of started on the blues, and I'll just switch my cameras here. This is not really a whole lot to look at really, but I ended up basically, remember how I had these guys all in red and white?
Yeah.
Well, these are the guys that were already done. And I've got the first base coat of blue to get their overcoats blue. I still have to do their cuffs red and their hands, the skin color. And I still have work to do on these for sure. This is just my first overcoat of blue. And so, yeah, like it's coming along like that. And then what I've done is at the same time, this is really the same kind of guy there, but I just have basically my ones that have not even been done, like that are just got primer on them, and I've just did the same thing. I got their blue overcoat, just the first coat of base paint, and then I'll be working on red tomorrow. And so these will be my French artillery. But yeah, and then I have with that group, I'm also doing the the sort of officer that's got the walking stick for the artillery. So this is an artillery officer with his hand behind him. I really love this miniature. I'm really looking forward to painting this one up. But like I said, nothing to look at. This is my post-holiday getting the brush going, because I find, and this could be a whole nother topic, right, Rusty, but I just find that like sometimes when you take time off, the hardest thing is to sit down. Like once you get kind of too comfortable, that the hardest thing is to sit down. So I wanted to sit down, get some paint mix, get some first base paint and that blue going, and now I'm kind of in it now. And so I'm actually planning on doing it for a bit this weekend, and try to make some headway on all of this. And I have my officers that these you've seen, but I have 2 officers on horseback that'll be for the French, but they're going to be in white coats because they're not artillery. And so I haven't really gotten started with them yet. But yeah. And then for
those miniatures,
these are well, it's really a combination. Like the straight up artillery, not that artillery officer, are Minden miniatures. The officer is by Krantara, and those other ones that I just pulled up with the horses are Krantara, but they're actually the same sculptors. So they're kind of the same line, even though they're not, if that makes sense. Like they're utilizing the same sculptors, but they're 2 different companies that commission them. And so, and so I'm quite happy with them. I love how they fit so well together.
Okay.
I have for my musty drink today a new scotch that I have tried once. You might be familiar with this one. Have you had it?
Yeah, I've had Glengoyne before.
Yeah, I've never had it before until I just got this. I got this as a gift. And so Highland Single Malt Scotch Whiskey, it says unhurried since 1833. But yeah, I actually quite liked it. It's kind of nice.
I was going to have Glenmorangie tonight, but I decided the lamp glass had to make its debut instead.
Yeah. No, that's nice. I love that, actually. You showed me where I could get that. I think I'm going to have to follow up with you again. I'm going to have to pick one of those up too.
If you can't find them there, they're also on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
But don't get to shot. They have them in shot glasses too.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
Mm.
So if you could go a set of 4 shot glasses or get a lamp.
Yeah. I like the one you have with that holds a beer.
Yeah.
That looks pretty cool.
My wife, when she seen that, she was like, what did you do?
I love it. I got Sierra Nevada. I didn't mention this. Maybe I should. Actually, when I was away, I was at the Sierra Nevada brewery, and I went on the tour there in Asheville. So they have like an amazing brewery for Sierra Nevada in Asheville. Mm-hmm. And they built the front house of it where like the public can go, truly for them to go there. I mean, like it is top notch, like unbelievably beautiful brewery. And I went there and I wanted to try Sierra Nevada just right on the home site, just right where they make it. And it was nice. So I had that in the tasting room. And then I had, I don't know if you heard of this one, but I had one, oh gosh, it's not called a Leviathan. It's a narwhal is what it's called. And it's basically like a 10% stout.
Oh,
it's like 10%. I couldn't believe it because I thought I'm coming to the US. I didn't think that, generally speaking, like the percentages were lower, like from what I remember when I lived in the US, like compared to Canada. But like, no, this thing was like 10%.
The barley wine.
What's that?
A barley wine.
I guess it was a stout, but it tasted good. But man, it was strong. It was a strong beer, basically. But no, I got myself a pint glass from there, and then a little cool bottle opener. Big bottle opener, metal bottle opener from them, and that was kind of cool. Little side venture.
Did they still have their tropical torpedo?
I think there is one. I saw a lot of beers there when I was there, and I believe one of them was called that, if I remember now.
Yeah,
I could be wrong, but I believe you're right. Yeah,
that's one of the ones that if I do get some, it's typically that one.
Mm-hmm.
Has a lot of flavor. Oh, you'd like it.
It's an IPA.
Yeah,
that is. They still have it. So so maybe so we have a couple of interesting topics tonight. First one was related to kind of, now that it's the new year and a lot of people are doing New Year videos, and after doing the New Year video I did where I was talking about all the different projects, it got in my mind this idea how everybody kind of plans their painting a little differently. And I think even myself, I actually plan my painting projects differently over time. It's not always the same as how many projects I have on the go or how I go about doing it. But I have both liked and disliked at times doing a project management style approach in my head where I have like projects that I think out as to what I want to accomplish, whether it be over time, different types of games that I play, other kinds of painting projects. And I end up with this sort of queuing system, and for the most part, I try to, whatever I put on my table or into a queue, I try to achieve that. Although I usually have one or two things that I fail with, and then ends up going back on the shelf. And then I always feel bad when that happens. Like I'm like, oh, I failed with this one. But in any case, our topic tonight is sort of related to how we decide out on our projects. Now, some folks may even just never have a queue. Like it may be that they're so disciplined and controlled that everything they buy, they paint before they do something else. Some
What
folks,
kind of crazy talk is that?
some folks may actually have a storage shed, where they keep all of their miniatures, but in any case, how do you figure out what you're going to paint next, and how far out do you plan? What makes you decide that? Like, what are your thoughts on it, Rusty?
Well, it's kind of an open thing. I do have, certain right now, sitting on a table behind. As you can see the box right there, right behind it. I have those. What do you call it?
Warlord.
Yeah, the Warlord games. I have the bolt action North Koreans.
Mm-hmm.
That's next in the queue for me. I'll probably get started on them in the next day or so. But I just picked up, supposedly this weekend on Saturday, I'm getting together with somebody. I'm going to be working on some Age of Sigmar Oryx, I think they call them now.
Oh, right.
So it's kind of like I plan things and then commissions pop up, and then it's like, okay, they get shoved down the rail a bit, and then when that commission's done, I just pick up where I left off. So it's kind of one of those things where they sort of here and there. I like to sort of plan things out because you kind of have to in a way. If you're doing commission work, you have to be a little more disciplined, I think. And like your video talking about what you have for your plan for the year is, kind of similar to what I do. It's like, all right, I have what I think I want to do, and then I have that, make sure it's primed, it's all ready to go, it's in the boxes, and I just pull it out when it's time for it to get started on it. And then, the old monkey wrench comes along, it gets tossed into the cogs. It's like, oh, congratulations, you got a commission. It's like, oh, money, more important. So I got to do that route first, and all right, take care of that. I'll pick up the next thing. Now, another monkey wrench is my own desires type of problem.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you're probably similar to me in some ways. Is like something will come along, a nice shiny thing, and you're like a goldfish. And you're like, oh, shiny thing, I gotta go pull that. It's like,
yeah.
And the next thing you know, you're like, you're all in, and then be damned what happened with your plans. And you kind of like just toss it off, everything off the side. You say, I want to paint this because this is so cool. And I can see we got Todd in here, don't we?
Yes.
And he did an interesting video. He did his talking about his hobby last 10 years. I like that one. So, Hey, Todd. And so occasionally, it's like when you see me do the work on like the ad mix stuff from 40K.
Mm-hmm.
I like ad mix so much because I just like the way the style about it. It just kind of speaks with you. So every once in a while, some of that stuff will get tossed in. BattleTech gets tossed in because I showed you the mech I just did. I have a bag, from all the stuff from Gen Con. I just will pull some stuff out every once in a while. Probably we'll do a Lance here coming up sooner or later because I've been wanting to do a Lance of BattleTech stuff, of vehicles. I got a whole bunch of vehicles.
How much this could be the second prong of the topic that we go to after I share my thoughts, but I'm thinking maybe this might be a good time to ask is just how much does gaming versus the new shiny thing, like I know commissions because it's money, it's a responsibility, like where you agree to do something that takes like ultimate preference, but if you had to like look at gaming, like things you need to use to game with, things that you just like to do because it's maybe a focus of yours. Like let's say BattleTech is like a focus of yours. And let's say even if you're not gaming with it right now, you may want to do it because it's part of your channel and part of your like a big part of your hobby that you always want to paint and do BattleTech hobbying. And then, so how much is it, like, how would you rate like some of these things when you say like, what do I need to focus on? Is it like the new thing that comes out, something you want to do like artistically because you just haven't done it in a long time, something that you need to do for gaming? Like, how would you balance all of that in your head?
Throwing the commission stuff aside and say I not doing any commission work, let's say for the next 6 months, which is odd, and rare, but typically it's things that get done the quickest, I think, is like if you got a new game coming up or the group wants to play this game. It's like this weekend, some of the guys want to get together and play 40K. Let's say I don't have a unit, I want to play that unit. Well, that's going to get tossed into the front four quickly because I want that painted so I can play with it. And I always feel that if it's painted, it plays better for you. So it has a little, it feels more dash of an Elan,
Unless you first painted it. Unless you just painted it.
Yeah.
If you just paint it and you really want it to do well, it's a goner.
It's toast.
There's no way every time you put the new thing on the table you just painted, there's no way it's doing for you what you wanted to do.
Well, it's like when you spend your hours painting it and you're sitting there, you're talking to it, say, this is the tactics I want you to do on the table. So if I'm not doing it correctly, I'm telling you, here's the warning order. Here's my written orders. I'm putting it on your little mat case right here as I'm painting it. So they'll do it, or they'll get shot. As Mel is in here, Striker, the infamous hammer to the head type thing. It's like, you will do this, or sacrifice a couple miniatures later, or dice, and they'll do what you want. Yeah, it works all the time. So, but yeah, it's just a matter of if you try to mitigate the shiny stuff, the shiny goldfish syndrome, and it's like you want things as all right. My goal is I want to get my North Koreans painted up because I already have a whole bunch of 28 mil Americans and stuff already. So my son wants to play some bolt action Korea.
Oh, cool.
So that's part of the planning with that.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some motivation to get it done.
Yeah. And
then after that, depending on what happens this weekend, there might be some more AdMech in the works. There's definitely going to be some BattleTech in the works. And then come March or April, there's going to be a painting challenge. So
yes, exactly. So that's, kind of another reason, like we do it, for our reason, like for the show and like to be able, but we also do it because it's just something like it's a painting project. It's sort of like a group painting project. Looks like we've had Dave also join us. And in addition to Todd, we got a lot of people in the house tonight. Thanks for everybody for stopping by.
Yeah.
So for me, it's interesting. I don't commission, and so I don't have that kind of as a responsibility. But But let's see here.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Looks like I dropped out there for a second.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I was like,
Uh-oh, having a technical difficulty.
You're in the middle of like.
Okay, so hopefully that doesn't happen too much. So for me, essentially, I like to have a bit of a balance between my main two things are gaming and my core games, which are gaming, are my core interests. And even if I'm not playing them at the moment, I always like to be painting French Indian War eventually. Like, it's sort of an area that I really want to be painting a lot. And so over the course even of my channel, it's something I've always tried to come back to. And if I'm not playing it at that moment, I like to get back to painting some of it. I've always got projects for it. And then lately, it's also been the Warhammer Fantasy. I've been kind of treating it the same way. So I'm always trying to focus on those two things, whether it be Mordheim or Warhammer Fantasy battles, trying to do that. And I guess here and there, whether it be Saga Dark Ages or other kind of things, that I do try to also dip into those just to keep up on painting and areas that I just want to be involved with my hobby. Now that's actually different than gaming, even though those are kind of my core games. I'm trying to align these concepts as much as possible, and those are my core games. I will also, let's say Twilight that I just kind of put up on the video, World of Twilight or Infinity. Those are ones that are not as core to my channel, but essentially I want to paint those to be able to game them, to get games in. But then the different thing about that is I painted up a bunch of Infinity last year, and we're just getting to using them now. Like, we're coming up to use them. I have some more Infinity to paint, but because I'm mainly painting it for gaming, I like to do it because I love the miniatures, and there is a different artistic approach to Infinity that I get to work on. Don't get me wrong, but I'm probably not going to paint those miniatures until I've gotten use out of the stuff I painted last year for a bit. Mm-hmm. Like, my drive isn't so much just to beat myself up or like about how I always need to be painting Infinity, where because I'm really interested in the French Indian War era and the Warhammer Fantasy stuff and Old Hammer too, I'm actually not much beat myself up, but I'm constantly telling myself that that's what I want to focus on, because that for sure makes me happy, and that's something I want to every year progress my collections on. And so I don't know if that makes sense, that I have sort of like a gaming piece that does take priority because I want to be able to spend time with friends and game. But where I can, I always try to make it fit into like my overall hobby goals. But I would say my overall hobby goals and like the eras that I like to paint in and what I want to do for my YouTube channel, take the most precedence, if that makes sense. And so that's kind of how I decide between the two. Yeah. So,
yeah, it's like you said, you have your core miniatures or games that you have that it may not necessarily need to be done. It's just that you enjoy painting them or adding to your collection, because that can fall under just adding to a collection. It's like my BattleTech miniatures. I don't need more BattleTech miniatures. I just keep adding new ones, on a regular basis. That's how, you end up with like 500 BattleTech miniatures, or 1,000, eventually over time.
Right.
Because you just some here, some there. It's not like it's like, oh, I need to buy 1,000 miniatures. No, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna buy a lance. I don't have these 4 mechs. I'll just buy 4 and then make a new lance or something.
Right. We've got a bunch of comments while we were doing our sharing on this topic, and
Dave brought up a question. If you've seen it, who does the minis for America, French Indian War?
Yeah, that was a recent comment. Here we go. So he asked if it's Warlord. believe it was Conquest that put out a line, and Warlord years ago had purchased it, I believe, or at least got distribution for it. And I have a number of those, and those were metal miniatures that Warlord still for French Indian War sells. And Warlord also has some ones that that are, I think, primarily made for American War of Independence, that Rusty, you're painting, that are plastic ones.
Yeah.
There are a lot of actual companies that do miniatures for both, and for French Indian War specifically, Galloping Major is a company that has a really pretty extensive collection that's specifically geared towards French Indian War, and there are quite a number of them that you can find out there. They're not as rare as people would think even for that area, although American War of Independence is definitely more. But yeah, and I'm actually quite into the Minden and the Grantera myself. Earlier on, Plaster Crack Gaming says he actually prefaces after 4 mechs a month. That's what he's aiming for in 2020. And so I know a lot of people do bring it down in numbers as goals, like metrics, and just will say, like, I want to paint 200 miniatures this year, or I want to do a certain number every month. I think that's a good way, like if you're looking for production, like really trying to get some work done, that it can be good to hold yourself to a number, because that's actually quite a bit at the end of the day. Essentially, depending on how many you want to do, they can really add up if you hold yourself to that over time.
Yeah, if you some people might set a goal, they want to paint so many mechs or so many miniatures or a unit or something of that nature. I typically, when I go start an army or a group, I just go, like right now, I just finished the stuff I showed you just a little at the start of the show.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I finished in the last 24 hours, I think it's been, roughly. So it's like the mech was something I, didn't take me very long, because that's, there's not much detail to worry about on a mech. But the infantry, that's, cranked out a lot of hours. As you know what that's like, is like detail upon detail. But the one nice thing is that all the details are identical in all the uniforms. So you can batch paint that pretty quickly, because I'm going to do all this, I'm going to do all this. So you just get into that rhythm, and then when you break the rhythm, I gotta go to bed or go do something, make dinner or something of that nature. That's when it gets in the way. But what else we got here? It's like lots of BattleTech miniatures coming. Yeah, that's what I said. We got a Kickstarter coming out. It's like March or April from Catalyst Games. So that's when we're going to be getting our big batches of BattleTech fix coming in again. So you're probably going to see a bunch of mechs hit my channel at that time too. Because if anybody's been watching my channel when it comes to BattleTech, I've been sort of doing the thoughts from Inner Sphere stuff. My series I do is kind of related to all the mechs that are coming with reason. All the mechs that are coming out of that. That's a nice sound.
No, we're into a BattleTech discussion, so I need a refill quick.
It's the best board game of the last 35 years.
Cheers. I'll drink a lot to that. Keep talking.
And yes, it's a board game.
But a lot of times the board games, it's funny because at one time I was thinking I'm going to push right into Massive Darkness. I've got a ton of miniatures. I played Massive Darkness with my family over the holiday. And I was thinking, like, I actually really like the miniatures, and I could definitely see myself painting them at one point. They're really beautiful miniatures. It's the cool mini or not stuff. But they're already quickly not in the queue. Like I said, like next year, I think maybe I'm just going to paint like the 200 whatever miniatures I got. I don't even have them anywhere remotely near the queue. They're like at a space station, in the atmosphere surrounding,
in orbit around Jupiter,
around the queue.
Well, sometimes it's like when you look at, because I have a lot of miniatures. Like I was always pointing over towards the earlier when it's like we got the room right next to us here is like in my storage area. I have a whole bunch of miniatures that every once in a while you'll see something odd come through that on my channel that's painted. That's because I just go into the vault of shame and it's like, I'm going to grab these guys and just paint them. Might as well.
Yeah.
And then like the painting challenge that we had, just like when you see me painting all those Eldar, if I pulled out the big giant massive tub of Eldar that's still not painted, yeah, it's like probably got about 8,000 points of Eldar that's not painted yet. So.
Looks like Eric Jack Sarge has joined us.
Okay.
Says, "G'day, gents. Painting French Indian War Indians right now. Would love to collect Minden and Krantera. Picked up a few samples. Quite pricey, but so nice." Yep, it's true. Yep. All different price points out there. I do love the miniatures, though. Yeah, they're nice. And so sometimes it's nice to pick up a couple of samples of like something that you just like, and even if you're not going to collect it, like, so just something because you're into that era or something like that.
Yeah, that's one of the problems. Like if you go to like Gen Con or Origins, and you go through, it's like you're in the hall, and you're going through, and they have, hey, have you seen our new game? It's like, oh, I haven't. It's like never heard of it, and they just start talking, and it's like, well, here's a miniature. I was like, oh, okay.
Now I have to get another one to put next to it.
There's a reason. It's like, oh, I got one. It's like you get those kleptomaniac types. It's like, I must have the rest of the set. Type of deal.
Yeah,
it's bait.
Well, what do you think? Shall we venture into our next topic?
Yeah, we could. It's related to what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's actually kind of related to what we've just moved into a little bit. So, Rusty, this one was kind of your inspiration. Do you want to open this one?
Sure. As I'm sitting there, just like I just assembled a few more miniatures today as I'm working on my little command stand, right? And yes, there, over there. And you asked the other night, it's like, we need a topic. And I was like in the middle of, I had my hands holding a big pile of sprues of the, for the red coats, right? For the American War during Independence, the Warlord game stuff. And I was like, we need a topic. And I'm like, I have a topic right here in my hands, is multi-pose stuff or single pose stuff. And multi-pose is like these guys right here. These are the little plastic guys from Warlord games. You got to put the heads on. You got to put the hats on. You got to arrange the guns in a certain way. So there's a whole bunch of them. You can put the little weapons on, the backpacks and everything on these little guys. So there's many ways you can assemble them. But the poses are sort of, in a way, fixed in one way, because you can only put the arms on in a certain way to hold them. And Dan has put a lot of these together too, because he's done the continental side of it. And I was like, okay, how much time have I put in just assembling it's like I have 3 units put together. And it's like, yeah, Todd just said no and loud, no multi-part figures ever for me. And it's like when you're sitting there and you're assembling all these things, you're like, oh my God, it's like hours upon hours upon hours. And it's like, I could be painting. It's like, and I always say one of the worst things I hate about the hobby is assembling stuff. I hate assembling stuff because I'm a painter. I rather paint stuff, because if I'm assembling stuff, it's just sucking the living life out of me. I am 98% going to Gen Con. I'll be there. I already got my ticket already for Gen Con for this year. So, and I just put together, the bolt action North Koreans, and they're all single pose. And I was like, multi-pose, single pose. And I was like, there's something to be said about just having a single miniature. All you gotta do is clean the flash off, little stuff. It's like clean it all up and then glue it to its base. And it's like, oh, time to.
They're metal, single pose metal.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And then you had just watched your video about all your single pose French and Indian War stuff, and it's like, what is the benefit, pros and cons? All right. The pros is time. The amount
Are you
of
open?
time,
So are you opening, or are you going? Are you going to answer first?
I'm going first. I started the ball rolling.
I think I have my answer, but I'm just making it clear.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you put sort of my answer.
I'm going to open, and I'm going first too.
Just drink your scotch and be quiet, okay? Okay.
I've never been known to be tactful. Go ahead. Don't let me stop you. Don't let me stop you.
They come up there. It's cold. You got snow, right? We're good. You won't thaw out till spring. So it's like you got to think. It's like, what are the pros and cons of having single pose versus multi pose? And it's like time or convenience. There you go. You go. Your turn.
No, that's not it.
Well, you interrupted me, and about all you had to do was wait 10 more seconds.
You're going to give me like a Zen answer? Time, convenience. Your turn. Okay. Okay. Well, I have my preferences for sure, but at the same time, I'm not one to really, in most cases, come down hard on one side. Like, I see the benefits for both. Speaking of, like, multi-pose figures, oftentimes plastic, but not always. Sometimes metal too. Nothing, I think, is absolute. The benefit is, in particular, where there's games where you could use different kinds of weapons. They have codexes where, I use the word codex. We know who we're talking about. But essentially, anything where you're changing out weapons a lot, in which case you may need different kinds of arms to hold those weapons. You want a lot of versatility. Then sometimes multi-pose models are really great for gaming. People like them for gaming. You can also have beautiful models with them. And it's really where a lot of the competitive, bigger games have gone, in many cases, just for that reason. Even my bolt action plastic miniatures, I could use different kinds of weapons for my U.S. infantry. They were plastic, and in the same way for my Eldar Guardians for Warhammer 40K. I could do kind of the same thing with them. And there are many people that like that. Like, that's what they want. Now, putting that aside, I prefer single pose models. And I think that's becoming less and less common. Like, you don't see as many new games that have single pose as their, main, I guess, avenue for supplying their miniatures. And the reason I like them, there's a couple of reasons. One of them that kind of dawned on me years ago when thinking about this is that where you use the word dynamic when we first started talking about this, like dynamic versus monopose. And one of the things is, like, the multi-pose can be considered dynamic in the sense that you can move them and you can change from one to the next, and that can be considered more dynamic. But I would argue that multi-pose models are often less dynamic than single-pose models. And the reason I say that is that if you have an arm, let's say you get a couple of variations, two variations of a right arm in a sprue, then you can actually, this arm may be, let's say, like this to hold a rifle. Let's see if I can position myself here so you can see what I mean. But it's like kind of not straight out, but slightly bent with the hand like this for maybe the top of a rifle to be holding. And so what happens is, if you want to lower that arm, it's going to be fixed. And if you want to raise it, it's going to be fixed. And so you have guys with their arms like this, and guys with their arms like this, and guys with their arms like this, all in a row. And then you have the other arm, and the other arm is like this, and it's like this. And so you have one guy that's like this, and one guy that's like this, and one guy that's like this. And their bodies are all pointed the same way because their torso is generally one of two torsos or one type of torso. And so, yes, like, they're variable, but they're variable like robots. Like they're not naturally variable. In the way that three different single pose models, individually sculpted models, would be in those three different poses. And so it comes down to resources, in the sense that, oftentimes with the single pose ones, like, I have my my French for my French regulars for French Indian War, they're marching, so they're all in the same pose. And so you can argue, well, they only had to make one pose for that. Same company will make, let's say that the skirmishers that I just did, where there's 6 different poses, but there's 6 different unique poses, and I like that. Even if I have to have doubles, I find they mix in well, and they look very variable. They're all very natural looking, and that's the thing that I find is when the old school sculpting, where they sculpt a miniature, completely different from the next, is resource intensive, but it's really ideal when it comes to the natural look to me. And so that's one reason why I like single pose models. Now, I also am like you in that I don't enjoy assembling a lot. And so I don't like to spend a ton of time assembling the models. And I like how they just come right out, and I'm ready to, just clean them up and do stuff and then ready to go. One thing I will say is Infinity's been a bit of an exception in this, in that they have extremely dynamic models. Corvus Belli does beautiful, beautiful miniatures. They're actually multi-part in that you'll get oftentimes arms and different pieces that have to be inserted, but they're very specific. They're basically a monopose in most cases. Like they're actually meant to go in one fixed sort of pose, and with some slight variability, but beautiful, like really great. There is some assembling involved for sure, but and there are a couple times where you have like little things on the head or whatever that could be a pain. But for the most part, I really enjoy assembling because they're beautiful, and they end up being extremely dynamic, beautiful sculpts. And so that would be my concept and answer as to why I prefer the monopose. And I also could make the same argument for old Rogue Trader, sort of like Eldar, and how like the old Hammer stuff that was basically they would make more individual sculpts and they're very dynamic poses, like my orcs and all that stuff. Where later they moved to the multi-part kits, and you have the same issues if that is a problem for you. So what say you? Like, I realize you've already answered this question. You basically said, what, convenience?
Yeah.
So, that's it? You're done with your Zen answer?
Oh. I don't know. You said it all.
I said it all.
Let's see. We got a couple more comments here afterwards. But yeah, when it comes to you pretty much hit it on a nail on the head. It's like I'm looking at what you were saying, all that stuff, and I said, yep. Now, Dan said he has figured out a way to get a few more different poses. It's like you look at some of these, they're on this stand, and they look, some of them are almost identical. There's like cookie cutters, and that is typically, if you ever looked at, you'd get a bag back in the day when everything was single pose metal figures. You'd get one that's like this, another one's like this, you might have 5 different variants out of the bag of 20.
Yep.
And you pretty much got the same thing going on with the, these are you have to assemble them because they're all plastic, but it ends up being pretty much the same thing. But the only difference is, like you said, the arms are fixed. So your difference is like, are they aiming down at the ground, or they kind of aiming straight, or they they're loaded from the ready, bringing the gun down or something. Mm-hmm. And about the only differences you have are like the officers or somebody. It's like some of these guys, they're carrying the rifle in one, they're actually carrying the rifle in the arm, and they have their hand or something elsewhere. So you could have the hand down at their side or pointing or something of that nature. So, yeah. But with the line guys, the same ones. So if you look at the grenadiers or the musketeers, the fusiliers out of those sets, it's like you have the guys at the ready, you got the guys are loading, and you got the guys are aiming. That's your 3 poses. Mm-hmm. And you spend all this time putting those 3 poses basically together.
Right. Well, one thing I would say is, like, I like to just go against everything that I just say sometimes, and that there are certain times where I do enjoy certain kits, in the sense that it looks like Clark just joined in. Hey, Clark, thanks for joining. And so I have the Gripping Bees Dark Ages like the levy that I used, essentially the Gripping Beast Dark Age levy. You could use them as warriors too. They're the warriors really, but I use them as levy. And I really liked those. I mean, like they have a lot of repetition in the faces. I mean, you do get like 6 heads, I think 5 or 6 heads. And I ended up sculpting a bit and giving some beards and like doing some different things. And they vary really well. Granted, the arms, you have the same issue with the arms, although because you're not in many cases using, I think using a fixed rifle or a 2-handed weapon will sometimes limit you more in the way you can articulate. Whereas with them, with slings and shields and swords, like you can kind of move them around a little bit more. You know, it's a really nice kit. It was really enjoyable to put together for a plastic kit for me. And but still probably in the end, not my preference, but I actually find some of them enjoyable and like some of them. And also there's an affordability piece. Eric mentioned earlier about how the price of the Minion ones and stuff. And like, I know sometimes the plastic kits to get larger numbers of troops can be a little bit less expensive. And you can amass when you're playing big battle games a little bit easier, larger armies. And so I think that could be helpful. We have actually gotten a lot of comments on this. So I'm just going to go back to right after Todd says no multi-part figures ever for me. And then the next one was Scarnier, Plastic Crack Gaming. I actually enjoy building kits. I hate painting them, hence most of my minis being unpainted. Totally fair. You know, like where we said, you know, we prefer the painting side of the hobby. I do as well enjoy the painting side, but some people enjoy the assembling and maybe conversions and other things like that as part of the building, and that's totally fair. Striker says, I like multi-part figs. I'm also a modeler, so there you go. You know, we're not all the same.
It's like putting the time in because they can figure out how to shave, cut, reassemble arms as plastic pieces and then glue them together into different poses. And you know, I can do that kind of stuff, but once again, it's like I always said, I'm a painter. I prefer to paint stuff than spend all the time assembling.
And I find on the diorama stuff, I actually enjoy the assembling and the modeling a little more, where I'm kind of focused for that purpose. I do that as well with some of my miniatures, but I do like to maybe go to town a little bit more on a diorama. And then Eric actually, you know, says, yep, I agree. I love the painting, not as much of a fan of the assembly. So, you know, we're all different in that regard. Dan says, I liked building the AWI minis. I found I could get more variety and customization. And I think that is one of the advantages of those kits for sure.
Now, the one thing about I do really like, as much as I hate all the time it takes to put these things together, you can get 30 miniatures really cheap. You know, you're talking $20 or so for 30 miniatures. So you're looking at, in some ways, you know, less than $1 a miniature.
Yep.
You know, you can't beat that price.
Yep. And I like
and that's the nice thing about it. Well, you could spend $50 sometimes and get, well, if you're going across that 800-pound gorilla company, you know, you can spend 50, 60, 70 bucks on 10 guys. So
Dan says for the bolt action that he likes the single piece medals. I liked my US plastic infantry, but I really liked my single piece US airborne medals, like for bolt action, both warlord. And so, you know, I probably like my medal ones more as usual, but I still liked my other ones. They were a great way to get some numbers, you know.
Yeah, it's just like the North Koreans, I just, you know, they're sitting over there. And it didn't take me long at all just to get them all ready for paint if I wanted to paint them immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one other thing is that if you're not a hobby type of guy, you're not spending a lot of time knowing how to assemble stuff, how to clean up, getting rid of mold lines, flashing, and all that kind of stuff, and then glue the stuff together. Some people use super glue for some reason for plastic miniatures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like I use plastic glue, but you know, they may not have those skills yet. And if you get a single piece miniature, there's one good thing about it. It's like they get it. That needs to go. They just wiggle a little bit and it pops off, and then they glue it to the base and they're ready to play with it. So,
yeah. Todd says, I already take 8 years to paint a platoon of 15 millimeter. I'd rather buy painted and just touch up. That's an option too, right?
Yeah.
You know? Clark joined us in the room, and then Dan says, for a large AWI army, price was the deciding factor for me. Totally fair. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. And they paint up beautifully. And I'm not just talking about those miniatures. Like, I love the way my Dark Age plastics look for Gripping Beasts. I mean, they paint up really well. I mean, this, I guess just to emphasize my point again, too, is I did a video called Inquisitorial Thoughts many years ago, it seems like at this point, and it was on the differences I thought between metal and plastic and all these single pose. I kind of equated some of these things together, but if you remember the some of the old orc knobs, or the orcs in power armor.
Yes.
Looks like Chris from Walkabout James just joined in. Hello, Chris. Well, some of those orc knobs in the old Rogue Trader ones, they're all individualized and they look so cool. And there's one of them where there's this orc knob in power armor, and he's got a plasma gun. I don't know if you guys this pose.
Yeah,
he's literally, he's like this, and he has this plasma gun like butted up to his body, and he's looking down at just like this, and his arms are really tucked in. And it's not that it's not that you couldn't somehow. You can pretty much do everything with every medium these days. So there's nothing that you can't do with plastic or metal. Like, if you really want to, like, you could get a plastic miniature and you could have each one of those arms and that gun fit in snug and look like it was made as one piece. You could do that.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't be as much multi-pose. You would actually be a monopose miniature that's multi-part in plastic. Like, all of these things have different iterations of them, right? But getting to this idea of monopose versus multi-pose, I love that posture so much. And I know that I would never see the character of that posture if it was left for me to somehow move the arms into that position.
Yeah.
Like, I would never be able to do it naturally.
It's like it gives it kind of the image of this orc knows he's fired this weapon before, and this thing kicks.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, I'm just like, I'm not ready to get. I'm holding a Missouri Mule in my hand. It's about ready to kick me across the thing, but I'm going to enjoy firing this thing anyway.
Yeah, and there are other postures like that, and so it's not the be all end all. Like, I like my other miniatures that are plastic and multi-pose too, and I enjoy pulling those out for games. But I would never have that piece and enjoy that piece the way I do if it wasn't made the way it was. And so I guess it's a bit of a balance as to what you're looking for and what you enjoy. I really think that many of them have a place in a lot of ways. Like, I think at the end of the day, if you got, then it's not going to happen. But if, like, hypothetically, you got rid of plastic multi-pose sprues, then all of a sudden you would be limited. It'd be really harder to collect large armies from more mass battle games, like with 28 mil. And it'd be much more expensive even to play games that had 75 to 100 miniatures. I mean, 75 single pose plastic, metal miniatures that are each individually sculpted. I mean, that's a ton of money, to do that. It's a ton of money to produce that. And so everything has a place, I think, in some ways.
There's your pros and cons. For every good thing, there's going to be one bad thing that has, definitely. Because if you look at the plastic multi-pose stuff, like this stuff right here, as much as, it's cheap, literally it's cheap. It doesn't cost you a lot to pick it up. To get a large army, it's like I have all my Continentals and my Redcoats and my Hessians, and I think maybe altogether I might have $150 into everything I have for all those miniatures, and I have close to 300 and something miniatures, I think, altogether. So by the time I'm done, I'm going to have a board of stuff, and it's going to take is a lot of time to put it together. But also with that cheaper price, there isn't quite the quality, because it's not on the same quality of details like you find on a Games Workshop plastic miniature. Now, one thing I hate about Games Workshop, like I just said a little earlier, it costs an arm and a leg to buy a lot of that stuff, but the details there, nowadays, it's like you're kind of paying for that detail to be there. So if you don't worry too much about having a lot of detail and you want a large army, you know, there's the give and take with it.
Right.
Now the con with it, with all those multi-pose ones, is the amount of time it's going to take me to put them all together. And that to me is kind of a detriment, because I'm not a type of person that likes to spend a lot of time assembling stuff unless I'm building terrain. It's like if I'm willing to spend the time and build something with my own hands, it's like create it. That's different, because that's, you know, you're breaking out your creative factor. And if you're a type of person that likes to, like Dan has spent a lot of time, or Mel spends time, they like to convert stuff. You know, that's what they, you know, I can't say that that's not something for them, because that's your hobby, type of deal.
No, absolutely. And Plastic Crack Game says, single pose character from Metal Miniatures were fine back in the day when you didn't need to field 120 plus orcs in a standard game of 40K. You would end up with a lot of the same mini if you use them now. And, you know, and I think this is really going to come down to what you want. You know, at the end of the day, you know, for some people, they would look, there are other folks on my channel that have commented how they don't like monopose models. They don't like to look at a field of monopose models. Back in the day, you know, when these games kind of started, you can think about even back to with Little Wars and having like all like fixed, you know, wooden soldier looking Napoleonics, like masses of them on the field, and people didn't mind it. When you look down at it, that was just a representation of a soldier, and they were monopose and people didn't mind it. Today, many people may mind that. Like the options of having variability is is much better for them. They'd rather have plastic, you know, and have where you can mix them up and have, let's say, a few different, it's cheaper to have a little bit more variety in there as you're mixing them up. Then there's people perhaps maybe like myself that, you know, prefers some looks over others. And I'm not as big on the multi-pose plastic look in many cases, but it really is going to be down to personal taste. But I do agree. I mean, I do think that there are technology advancements, you know, with injection molding sprues and the multi-pose models that we've come to graduate into over the last 20 years plus 30 years, that there are distinct advantages. I mean, even when you look at Warhammer and you go from Rogue Trader to second edition, like that's where they came out with a lot of the plastic kits, right? And they stopped with some, like they started producing more and more squads. You know, you could get your Space Marines, your Space Orcs, like in plastic versus metal. So you could do this exactly like this. Now, I would also say that, you know, if I'm going to have like a massive army on the table and it's going to be plastic, like I actually, because I like the old school look, like I don't mind like your orcs, Rusty, that you did that are second edition, where they're all like kind of have the arm up. I like those. Like I wouldn't mind like a field of those. Like it's so if you like the cartoonish look and the old school look, you might not mind the monopose and the significant amount of repetition. It really comes down to taste, right? Mm-hmm. To some degree. And so I think that's part of it. And Clark says, if a company is going to do monopose models, they should be in good postures. He said, basically, it's funny, like we're all different, right? That was a minor beef with Alpha Strike minis. He's talking about Battletech, but even after what I just said there, you know, like I don't mind like the old school where there's like one posture, but like, you know, people want different things out of their aesthetics.
Yeah, if you look at the era, what era is the game representative? If you're talking about any type of ancient, medieval, even to black powder era, even Civil War, which is part of the black powder era, what most battles happen, they're rank and file. They're marching forward in ranks. And, you know, it's like even black powder, it's like they got the rifle on their shoulder, they're marching forward. And then when they get to say, ready, present, you know, you don't need a whole bunch of different poses. It's like when your French and Indian War stuff you have a whole mess of single pose stuff. They're marching forward. It's like they are in rank. You know, it's like when you look at the army, I have no problem. It's like I look at, say you have a table of 300 of those guys ranked up except for some of the front rank guys might be aiming. I have no problems. Like, that's what I expect to see in my mind. That's what I want.
And then they also make skirmishes too, right?
Yeah.
So like the Canadian ones, the Marines that I just did, they're all in skirmish poses. So you can mix them up too. But yeah, like I love the. I mean, mine, they're all like one miniature, but I love them. Like, I love to see them all, and I kind of will paint different hairstyles and just paint them a little differently. But but I love the look of them. It's all to each to his own, right?
Yeah. Now, if you go into more modern or sci-fi, I expect to see more dynamic poses because they're in motion, they're hiding behind something, they're running, they're doing all kinds of stuff, and it's like, well, if you're playing Ellie's game,
Grievous Belly Infinity.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
That's it. Yeah, I was trying to think of that. If I see Infinity, I expect to see 40K, Infinity, any type of thing like that. I expect the guys to be more active, And if I'm gonna put the guys together, I can assemble them in many different forms. If I want the arm different ways, etc., give me a whole bunch of options to put them together different ways, different poses.
Skirmish games in general, where you have low model count and maybe even less than 10, you like to see differences, right?
Yeah, because if that's the case, it's like, you get guys that will build their army, and when they paint their guys, and they'll put the names of each guy on the back of the little, so everybody in their little army, skirmish army, has a different name, so they name their guys. So
yeah, Stryker kind of said something similar. He said, "Eras that fight in line, same pose models are fine within units, marching, advancing, firing, etc."
Yeah.
Then he says, "My 15 millimeter ACW Union is same pose units, and Johnny Rebs are multi pose for the rabble look, less trained." That's kind of cool too.
Yeah, I can see that too. It's you get just in a bag of 15 mils. If you give them just enough multi-pose stuff thrown in there, yeah, I could see that. It would be something to mess around. Looks like you need to top off your Scotch already again.
Well, I was waiting. I think somebody mentioned Battletech again. I was like, if I actually top off too many times on the Scotch, I'm going to end up messing with the controls here to moderate.
Well, Clark brought up Battletech, so we're talking about Alpha Strike.
Not again. So, one of the things that, like I'm looking at doing some colonists, some basically loyalists that were on the English side, but for the French Indian War, and basically the original colonists, original Americans. And the nice thing is that with Minden, I can do 15 different individual poses for fixed metal. There's 2 packs of 5 or 6, and then another pack of militia that are 5 or 6. And so I could just really only have one double, which painting differently, like, and mixed in, I would never even really tell. Like, 2, really, if I did a unit of 30 that really was just contained 15 unique miniatures, I probably wouldn't tell a whole lot that I actually had any doubles. Looking at it at a glance, like, I wouldn't really.
You buy like 2-3 different packs, and you could have a good variety amongst them.
Yeah, and they're fixed metal, and so fairly natural looking, and so it'll be expensive, like we mentioned earlier. But it's kind of what I like. Like, for this particular game, my French Indian War stuff, this is a lifetime collection for me. Like, this isn't something for me to go out and play next week, or just to get into a new game to just try with some friends. Like, this is like these will be included in my casket.
I'm buried with them.
That this is my collection. Like, this is the French Canadian War stuff is my main game. It's like the collection I'll always have. So I don't mind putting a little more coin in, but to just jump into a game to do something like that, for each unit, it's for myself not as practical. But
yeah, I probably will my Battletech stuff to my son, but everything else, it's like
some of them could be incorporated into the physical casket itself.
Well, you could do is have my casket, and then the special top of it, is like you have a clear resin thing, and then put all the mechs lined up in rows, ranks, and then fill it with epoxy resin, fill it in, and buff it out. So when you pull me out of the ground in 10,000 years, they look at it, they go, what the frack is that?
Well, you could have like the casket itself be like the pilot area. You're just going to have a big area for your burial area, and you could have your arms and your legs attached to the casket.
Yeah,
And
like
the casket itself would be the pilot.
I should start on it now.
They're holding all your miniatures.
My casket is an actual cockpit of a battle mech.
Right, and the rest of the mech holds all your miniatures.
Yeah. There we go. We're good.
Terrain, too.
Okay, we got some more comments coming here.
Striker says, lots of laugh. Will there be room for the body?
Probably. I'll have taken a PPC hit, and I'll be incinerated, so I'll just put dust in there. So just pour the dust over top of my miniatures. Dan's
gotten very poetic on us. He started with "I was a," and I'm writing for. He's going to break into song here. I think he's got another comment below. I'm going to jump right to that. I was a little hesitant to spend too much on the AWI minis. I wasn't sure if I would enjoy it, so the cheaper plastics was a good way to go for me. Your actual collection, you've painted up beautifully. I mean, and I think you made a good decision, honestly. And I wouldn't have any buyer's remorse on that.
To be honest, I think Dan's Continentals look better than my Hessians right now. So, because I think he's put more meticulous time into his than I have in mine. Because it's like I've been really just banging them out as fast as I can. So
I think I just remember seeing your Jaegers recently, and I think you've done really good work with them on those. Yeah. So, but Plastic Crack says, what do you guys think about resin printers being used for models that are horribly outed and not going to be outdated, maybe, or out of date and not going to be updated? For example, vehicles for BattleTech. CGL don't plan on updating any vehicles.
I can see that. So we're seeing it now. It's running rampant. It's in the last year. If you look at top her off, baby. Here we go. We're going BattleTeching. All right. If you look at like eBay right now, in the last 6 months, I'm seeing more and more and more resin printed BattleTech miniatures hitting the market now. Are people just doing it themselves? They'll print them up for low prices, and then they'll sell. It's like you could buy a Lance of 4 resin printed miniatures now for like $15 to $20. Mm-hmm. Well, normally it's like around $12 to $15, $20 for a metal one. And now you can get 4 of them for the same price. So it's affecting. It's starting to affect things now.
I don't have like bringing the same perspective, something similar, same scale, old Epic, right? 6 mil. Some of the newer stuff was in plastic. I guess plastic was in the beginning and towards the end, but my favorite stuff that I have plastic and metal 6 mil for Epic. Same. And my favorite stuff is the metal Armageddon stuff that I have. Like I love those metal miniatures. And even the infantry, I love the metal Terminators I have for Epic. And it's going to come down to personal preference. I mean, some people really just don't care. They want decent looking miniatures. They don't care if they're plastic or resin or metal, and they want to get them on the table and play the game. And that's totally reasonable. I am kind of a geek or a nerd in the sense that I just kind of like holding that weighted Rhino, and painting it up, and I just like it. I just love it, and so I'm willing to pay a little more money for that. And so I guess it just depends.
Yeah, I have. It's been a while back. I've painted a lot of the MechWarrior Online BattleTech miniatures. I had a bunch of customers. One of them happened to be the former, actually 2 of my best customers were the former owners of Alienware. And they had probably 100 or more of the resin MechWarrior Online BattleTech miniatures. And they sent them to me and I painted them up. And this was at the very beginning. It's like, wow, these things look totally like what you see in the game. And they don't look like anything that's in the the metal ones that you see.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that is now the new standard of everything coming out. It's like you look at the Kickstarter miniatures that are coming out here in a couple months, 3 months, I think it is. Those maybe 4 months. They like you compare them to the metal ones. I do like the feel of a metal battle mech. It's like I have the one right over there. That's metal. That's a lead miniature, and it's heavy. There's some weight to that thing. It's like if you put it in a sling, you could kill somebody. But now
you hold it too long, and you could get traces of lead in your blood.
Yeah. But then you got these little plastic guys. There's nothing. I don't even know that's in my hand.
Yeah.
And that's the same way with those resin battle mechs. One of the big things is like when the guy that, when I was doing those Mech Warrior Online ones, he says, "Oh, I can send you a whole bunch of the metal bases." And I was like, I'm not sure that's a good idea because I think we're going to go with plastic. He said, why is that? Because the metal bases, you can glue them on there, but the weight of that metal base may be enough to break them.
Rip them at the ankles.
Yeah.
You could rip them at the ankles. No, exactly. And I love the old hexagon metal Battletech bases. Like, you saw what I did for Battletech, and I love those. I mean, like those really old, like I have a lot of the really old stuff, for mine, and I love them. I mean, they're really nice. And that's one of the things that I like about Battletech is I love the retro presentation of Battletech. And that's what I really like. I just really identify with it. It's appealing to me. Same thing with Starfleet Battles, even though I don't play it. Like all of that could, like if I had no games, like in tomorrow I just woke up and I had nothing, like everything got destroyed in a fire or something like that. Like I could easily, get something like Starfleet Battles and enjoy that and just invest in it and just start from scratch and something like that. If I didn't have other stuff that I was doing, but I love the old retro look of that stuff. Stryker says, other than if copyright issues arose, I don't see a problem with 3D prints. And then Dan had already shared that, that he was hesitant about at first about spending too much in the
that's the if you had a 3D scanner and you're able to scan miniatures, and if you 3D printed them with resin for your own stuff, I don't see that as a problem because you're not selling them.
Yeah.
But when you cross the line and you start selling those products, then you're stealing from the original company.
Right. Now,
unless they no longer have, it's like, you look at some of that old Rogue Trader stuff, that's no longer in production anymore. It's been out of production for decades. So,
but even that is controversial because
that's
you try to sell your stuff with, like, we see blank tabs on eBay. And so I'm a member of a number of old Hammer communities that sell miniatures trading on, like, let's say Facebook. And if somebody throws up, whether it be the Mordheim sort of era or Rogue Trader era miniatures, and they have blank tabs and they're recasts, when they sell recasts and they try to get the same money and they try to hide them as like the originals, the collectibles, people get really pissed. It's not really considered to be legit, to do that.
Yeah, you're selling counterfeits, and it's like a Gucci bag versus a counterfeit Gucci bag. They look the same, but they're not the same thing.
Well, it's one thing if you, or at least upfront about it, but but if there is like an issue where they're not being produced for and they're now in the public domain, like if somebody makes that argument, and if that is the case, then at least you're honest about it, but don't try to sell the original and trick somebody into it,
Now that's probably another topic that we could probably do sometime.
Yeah, well, and we kind of have, in the sense that we've done the 3D printing stuff, but we can, the whole counterfeit thing is another spin on it. Like you can go into alone, I think. Plastercock says, I like that you can have different era of mechs on the same battlefield, and there is an in-lore reason why they look different. Different factories on different planets would look different. That's true.
Well, you look at a great example is World War II.
Mm-hmm.
A Sherman tank. Who built the Sherman tank? Those many different factories building different Sherman tanks. It's all at a distance looks like the same tank, but you get up close, it's like has a different engine, it's like many different aspects of it is different because each factory that was producing. It's like, we can tool this kind of equipment to put into this tank. So the overall it looks like a Sherman tank, with the basic, but there's almost like no interchangeable parts in some parts of it. So,
you know what I think would be a great future, for miniatures would be that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in our prior discussion that we had on this, Clark, I think, and I don't be insulted if it was somebody else, but I think it was Clark that said, 3D printers are doing metal now too. Like, I think somebody brought that up in that discussion that we had. And I didn't realize that at the time, and I still don't.
I don't remember that. So.
But I don't think it's like your hobbyist printer that I have like right behind me here necessarily. But if at the end of the day, the time that goes into the cost of the miniature, as production costs come down, it's design costs that I think really matter. I mean, in the sense that if you really want a detailed sculpture that's in miniature, you still, whether it be on a computer screen or whether it be, in traditional sculpting, you still have to have someone go in and do it. It's really time consuming. And so at the end of the day, I know we're already starting to see this a little bit where you can get your own miniatures printed, like 3D printed, but if at the end of the day in the future, like you have people sculpting, you can get the individual sculpts that you want, however it be, like whether it be cut up for variability or whether it be like a single pose, but you actually just decide whether you want in plastic, some sort of plastic, resin, or metal, or whatever substance it is, like you can order that same miniature in different mediums. So this way I can get my weighted old school traditional, miniature. It'll probably be much more expensive to get it at that point if you're going to do it that way. But I could do that. I could pay more money and have it in some form of metal, heavier, or you could have it in a plastic, but it's the same miniature. The guy is getting paid as a sculptor, guy, gal, and to me, that would be ideal. Like you could choose what you wanted in and you could offer it in different type of mediums.
Yeah, it'd be kind of interesting. Is like we talked, maybe it's almost 2 years ago now, that, having a printing service where it's like, you go, it's like a la carte. I want this miniature, this miniature, this miniature, this pose with this aspect of it. And you just like click, drag over, click, build your stuff. And then they go, okay, that's your order. They hit the little button. It's like, it's like over the course of a day or two that prints it all out for you, and they ship it to you.
Yeah, that would be great.
And I can see some enterprising individual within the next 5 years. That's going to be part of a market plan for somebody, because somebody's going to have to wants to design that, or they maybe haven't thought about it. We may be the only ones thinking about doing it. We just haven't done it yet. So,
well, I think up until now, I think as I interpret it, the miniature industry has had the cost is in the production, right? And so, the traditional way is you initially you have a molding process that would then create a metal miniature, and that's actually, although a more expensive material, that's a cheaper way to get into the industry now, even to this day, where you spin cast, your metal miniature, you're doing a basic old school mold. But then, like you've had other things happen where then it's become injection molded kits, which were much more expensive. And so now the production, it needed to make sense that it was happening on a large scale, and it was much more expensive initially, but the materials were much less, to do the cost of each miniature. And so all of this money was around the production. But now as 3D printing's coming out, and in the future, I could see how it's possible that technology could reduce further and further the cost of production from what it was before. And if that happens, design is still really expensive, and that could be where, you're still going to have lots of costs. But everything's gone. I mean, I'm not an expert on technology or anything like that, but as I understand it, like that's the way technology is it's going towards consumer convenience, and you're eliminating some of the barriers of the past and opening up avenues of consumer convenience. And the more and more that happens for us, then I think we'll have more opportunities.
As Mel and I have gone through this whole process of making miniatures, and originally it was like you had to pay somebody to take the green stuff, make a miniature, actually physically make it, make the whole set. It's like if you wanted 10 miniatures, you had to have somebody design those 10 miniatures with all the different parts and stuff to be put together. And then you got to send it to somebody else. And maybe that in-house they could do it the same thing. But for us, it's like we had one sculptor, and then we shipped it off to another company that had the spin casters and all that, and they can make the vulcanize the molds from those, and then turn around and spin everything out for you, and then they would ship it to you.
Right.
And it's like they had the 15 mil line, and so we started getting into, we had some 28s, but so it was a major expense. And then it went to, now you pay somebody to sit there with their CAD design, and they design everything on the computer. They can make a 3D print of it, with a resin, so you get a high micron level printer, still making the actual thing, and then they can turn around and either make a mold out of that so they could cast more of them quickly, be using the injection molding, or it'd be a spin caster. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get to the point, I think we're going in the next 5-10 years, I could see in 10 years where a company will have big giant vats of resin, and they just like the machine just goes, and all of a sudden you're just having all these printed miniatures just drop to the bottom, and the screen thing comes up, puts them over in the UV light, and then bag it, and it's off to you.
Yeah.
And it's like you within days you have your army there, and there's none of this having to worry about any of the casting and all that stuff. It's just all 3D printed, and it just goes to you.
Yeah, or it'll even happen just at your house.
Yeah, if you have that capability, which I think we'll have in 5-10 years, where a resin, if you have the ventilation and everything like that, because right now I guess that stuff is bad for smell and everything.
Maybe in 50 years, you'll sit down for a game and you'll say, what game would you like to play today? And we'll say, we're going to play, like World War II, and say, okay, well, choose your list, and I'll choose mine. You hit a button and it prints it below the table and pops the miniatures up.
And they're actually little robotic machines, and they actually move around and fight for you.
That'd be cool too. But honestly, you could have a 3D printer like that just kicks it out to you, right? Like right away, or something like that. I was going to ask if you were down to the shoe yet. You haven't made it to the shoe.
No, I'm still in the lamp. Yeah, I'm not sitting over there just like with an IV of scotch going, oh, more battle jack.
No more battle tech. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm whenever I get kind of a dry voice, I just take a sip. Oh.
I take a sip too, whether I have a dry voice or not.
Yeah, Stryker is like Green's Master Mold Production Mold. There you go. Because Mel, he used to work for Alliance Miniatures, so he knows all that stuff. He used to do it.
Yep. And then Plastic Crack Gaming says printed and painted, and that would be awesome. I think referring to
that would be the coolest thing, is if you have the resin. So depending on how the light, what frequency the light goes through, will change the color of your resin. So when the UV light actually eventually hits it, it's already colored for you.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool. But, it's like, all right, computer, I need a 150 Hessian troops at this era, and I want this unit. And, and out comes out the replicator, and there they go. And they're marching.
That's right.
Where do you want us, boss? Why don't you over there?
So we kind of have diverged quite a bit, quite casually, and into another interesting topic. But it was kind of from single pose versus monopose. But it's kind of an interesting discussion. I think, like many of our discussions, that this one, a lot of people fall onto different sides of the argument on this one. You know, some people like plastic, some people like metal, some people like more variability and be able to model more. Some people like to be able to get to the painting faster, or like the look of the old, you know, more single pose models. But, you know, it's all out there for everyone, and I don't really think any of it's going away. Dan says, every time someone says Battletech, drink. If you notice, I'm the only one that's doing it, though.
Yeah.
Pretty soon I'm going to be sitting here slurring my words.
Because, well, hey, you played Battletech, so you're part of the crew. So
no, it's true. It's true. I will play again too. I've kept my stuff. I've not sold it. I sold my Malifaux, but I kept my Battletech. And so I will play. I will play more Battletech again at one point. And I did get rid of any of my stuff that I got.
I'd say if you were closer, I'd be forcing you to play more Battletech.
Every time you guys mention Battletech, you'll notice I slur a little bit more in my words. The more that you guys keep talking about it.
I need a lot of drink of scotch.
So my opinion on this is,
why is there 3 more of you now?
Exactly. All right.
Quit moving so much.
Well, I think we've covered our topics quite well here. Actually, some good discussion tonight. I appreciate everybody stopping by as usual. It's been great in the comments.
Yeah, it's great to have all the wide range of people drop in tonight for us.
Yeah, and we got a lot of people of different backgrounds, you know, with historical and science fiction and like all kinds of different stuff.
Well, it kind of is that we're both historicals. We're both science fiction.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we like all the genres. It's just something we just like gaming. Yep. And so it's a good thing.
It's good to have a core of people that actually also appreciate different stuff. So
that is true.
Okay.
So next time it'll be over on my channel.
Yes.
And 2 weeks from now, today is the 9th. So I guess it would be the 16th. Here's a question. Okay, we got a couple questions pop in real quick. When should you sell minis if you don't have any interest or no longer play a game? That's a good question. I hear so many folks who sell their off armies and regret it later on down the road when they get back into the swing of things.
Well, that sounds like a topic in of itself.
I think we kind of covered that one of our shows. When to eBay and when not to eBay. When to sell or just...
Yeah, I think we had a topic like that.
Yeah, it's like, that's a hard one. There's been times where I have sold off, you know, I just recently sold off some stuff. You know, it's just the nature of the beast. Because if the group is no longer playing, or the people that used to play those games are no longer even around and no one's playing it, you might as well get some money out of it and put it into a game that's actually being played. That's all I could say.
I would say it depends on the intensity of the pain in your heart.
Yeah. Now, if it's something that you totally enjoyed playing and then you enjoyed painting it and just having it around, sometimes, if you have a case where you can put it on display, put it on display. Because eventually it could come back around.
Yeah.
It's the best advice I got.
But then sometimes, you know, if you don't think you're ever going to play it again and you're holding on to it and perhaps you're not sure why, you might hit that window where you can sell it. And then, you know, and then there's sometimes you can go past that window where it's really, there's no market for it anymore. So it's kind of quite a bit of a balance.
I had that exactly. It's like the Drop Zone Commander stuff I have. Some of it took me a year to sell some of it. I still have some stuff still up on eBay, and it's been almost 2 years been trying to sell it because there's no market for it now.
Mm-hmm.
So
you have to use them for Battletech stand-ins.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what I'm thinking now.
Dan says he gets too attached.
I never sold any minis. Yeah, that's one thing. It's like there's certain stuff. It's like I'll never, like we said, you know, my Battletech stuff probably get buried with it unless my son could pry it from my cold dead hands. There's others like the historical. Some of the historicals it really hurt me was when I sold off my American Civil War 15s and my Napoleonic 15s. But sadly, at the time, everybody around here was literally dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sad thing. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're past our normal hour to hour and a half point here. I think we've covered our topics pretty good. Some great conversation, some great company. Can't mention BattleTech too many more times, or else I won't be able to wake up tomorrow.
I think I might have to do a video on BattleTech.
That's right. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining in. So we're looking at 2 weeks, as usual, over on Rusty's channel.
Yep.
And we will announce it.
All right, everybody. We'll talk with you later. Enjoy your painting. Enjoy your hobbying. Enjoy all your time with your friends. Throw some dice. Throw it at each other if you have to. That's what you call fun. Let's do it again. All right.
Sounds good. Talk to you later, everybody.
Night.